Who wrote the US Declaration of Independence? Thomas Jefferson. Who was the US president during the Great Depression and World War II? Franklin D. Roosevelt. What year did Christopher Columbus first reach the Americas? (1492). The American Civil War was mainly fought between the North and the South, or Confederacy. Which event directly caused the U.S. to enter World War II? Pearl Harbor attack. The midnight ride to warn colonists was famously performed by whom? Paul Revere. How many original colonies formed the United States? (13). Which famous abolitionist helped slaves escape via the Underground Railroad? Harriet Tubman. Which U.S. state was purchased from Russia in 1867? Alaska. The fight for women's voting rights, suffrage, achieved the Balanced Amendment. 19th. The Boston Tea Party was a protest against which specific British policy? Taxation without representation. Who was the U.S. president who famously said, "Ask not what your country can do for you"? John F. Kennedy. The first permanent English settlement in North America was Jamestown. The U.S. bought a large area of land from France in 1803, known as the Louisiana Purchase. Who was the leader of the civil rights movement known for the "I Have a Dream" speech? Martin Luther King Jr. The U.S. Constitution was signed in which city? Philadelphia. Which U.S. president is famous for issuing the Emancipation Proclamation? Abraham Lincoln. The period after the Civil War when the South was rebuilt is known as Reconstruction. What was the main reason people traveled to California in 1849? The Gold Rush. Who was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean? Amelia Earhart. The first 10 amendments to the Constitution are collectively called the Bill of Rights. Which former slave became a powerful abolitionist orator and writer? Frederick Douglass. The construction of the Transcontinental Railroad was completed during which decade? 1910s. The Cold War was primarily a conflict between the US and which nation or bloc? Soviet Union, USSR. Which famous general led the Allied forces in Europe during World War II? Dwight D. Eisenhower. The American Revolutionary War officially ended with the Treaty of Paris, 1783. Which U.S. city was founded by Brigham Young and the Mormons? Salt Lake City. What major constitutional crisis led to the resignation of President Richard Nixon? Watergate scandal. The U.S. policy to stop the spread of communism after World War II was called containment. Who is the chief of the Sioux who defeated General Custer at the Battle of Little Bighorn? Sitting Bull. What decade is known in the U.S. as the Roaring Twenties? 1920s. Which landmark Supreme Court case established the principle of separate and equal? Plessy versus Ferguson. What was the name of the ship that brought the Pilgrims to Plymouth in 1620? Mayflower. The construction of the Transcontinental Railroad was largely completed by workers from which country? China. Which U.S. state was the last to abolish slavery 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation? Texas, June 10th. The US acquired California, Nevada, and Utah after winning a war against Mexico. Which president authorized the dropping of atomic bombs on Japan? Harry Truman. What was the name of the first satellite launched by the USSR, sparking the space race? Sputnik. Which American industrialist is famous for his innovations in the assembly line for cars? Henry Ford. The Iron Curtain was a term used to describe the division between Western Europe and Soviet-controlled Eastern Europe. Which battle is often considered the turning point of the Civil War in favor of the Union? Battle of Gettysburg. The U.S. national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, was inspired by a battle in which war? War of 1812. The movement of African Americans from the rural South to northern cities is called the Great Migration. Which state was the first to abolish slavery 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation? Texas, Juneteenth. The U.S. policy that stated European powers should not colonize the Americas anymore was the Monroe Doctrine. Which famous female pilot disappeared while attempting a flight around the world? Amelia Earhart. Which president is associated with the policy known as the New Deal? Franklin D. Roosevelt. Which year marked the end of the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War? 1973. Paris Peace Accords. The first successful English colony, Jamestown, was established in which present-day state? Virginia. The attack on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon occurred on which date? September 11th, 2001.
How many questions did you get right? Tell us your score in the comments below. If you enjoyed this quiz, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos. Keep your brain active and check out our next quiz video right now.